Recording.
I stand here at historic Fort Charlotte, a place that for our country is not only a symbol of citizen protection, but also a symbol of citizen freedom. The motto here once was Expulsus Piratus, Restituta Commercia, which stood for Pirates Expelled, Trade Restored. And it is now, in our well-earned independence, forward, upward, onward, together. And in that right of our independence, it is incumbent upon us, as citizens of this country and citizens of the world, to ask the questions that need to be asked and to pursue the answers that carry forth truth and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Citizens Review, the forum that will provide for us a place by which to pursue those answers and to do it with a sense of independence, a sense of accuracy, and a sense of boldness. I'm Aaron Ferguson, and this is Citizens Review.
Third parties rise up as the opposition licks its wounds, and the government is still a no-show. Tuesday night was the great debate. I was there in person to enjoy that unmitigated display of Bahamian democracy in the 21st century. We have some of those great debaters in the House tonight, including a man described as the star of the show, the man described as the victor of the show. But I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, we have no ghost in this room tonight. Welcome to Citizens Review. This is our inaugural show to our audiences in the United States, on the internet at citizensreviewtv.com, and here in the Bahamas. I promise you we will be independent, we will be accurate, and we will be bold. We are the citizens. Let's run the review. First up tonight will be the star of the debate, the taxi driver, leader of the Workers' Party, which may be the only party that works, Mr. Rodney Monka. Mr. Monka, how do you feel about the debate on Tuesday night?
Well, it was a great experience. There were certain things that I had to do. The strategy was to knock out the person whom I perceived to have been the major contender, and that was Ryan Pinder. I spoke to him in a language that only he, his leadership, and I understood.
But what do you say to people who say that you were maybe attacking Mr. Pinder, that say you were going on the negative side of campaigning?
I said nothing negative about him, nothing at all. I merely pointed out early in the game that his party leader, Perry Christie, did not support him. But nothing personal was said. I was very respectful to him. He has no history of struggle. We don't know even if he is Bahamian.
I want to talk about an issue that you brought up that relates to that. We have a clip that comes straight from the debate that addresses when you talked about the ballot issue and Mr. Jones asked you a question. Let's run that clip right now.
I never told anyone that the register is improper. I have confidence in the integrity of the register. It is the ballot that I have no confidence in, because there are two candidates, the ghost of the FNM who's not here, and this man to my left who should not be on the ballot.
In studio tonight, Godfrey Pinder, who also has some issues with the ballot and has filed a lawsuit that goes to that right. Mr. Pinder, welcome to the show today.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Thank you.
Mr. Monka has brought up some big issues about the ballot. He suggests, like you suggest, that there are some challenges to the ballot, not particularly the register, but the ballot itself.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Well, Mr. Monka is correct in his challenge, and he's well aware of what that is. I'm concerned with my challenge as well. My challenge is concerned with the manner in which they presented it. The nomination paper said on it $400, and it didn't say whether it was cash or cashier's check.
Okay.
Not on that.
Understood.
Now, within the law, when I was shown it there, it did indicate that that is what it was. However, the returning officer decided he would call the parliamentary commissioner to find out what to do, which indicates to me that they had the discretion to do something.
Yeah.
After having done that, he said, well, go and see the parliamentary commissioner. I said, all right, well, I would go. On my way, I decided to get a cashier's check from the same checking account, which I did and took to him. But when I arrived there, the parliamentary commissioner said he couldn't accept it. On the other hand, upon my returning for my keys, which I had left, the returning officer, Mr. Jack Thompson, passed a document to a police officer who passed that document to me. It was a rejection. Okay. Under Section 38(5) of the Parliamentary Act, it indicates that you must do the rejection on the nomination paper itself. Hence, that would be something that he had not done. Therefore, under Rule 2 of the rules, the Parliamentary Rules 1969, and Section 22 of the Parliamentary Act, I filed what is known as an appeal. The appeal is based on, it refers to the Magistrates Court Act and the appeal section of that, which is 55 throughout, all the way to 77.
Is this an issue that can stop the election on February 16th?
No, it can't stop the election, but it can make it null and void and have it done over again.
Oh, that's very interesting. Mr. Monka, I want to get back to you. You suggest that there are two candidates on the ballot that should be disqualified. One you say is not a Bahamian, and the other you said has conflict of interest.
Well, essentially, as it relates to Dr. Dwayne Sands, the law is clear. He's not complied with Article 48(1)J of the Constitution. He failed to publish a notice in the Gazette, as is required by the Constitution, within a month before the day of the election, disclosing what interest, the value of it, that he has in a contract with the government. He has failed to tell us the name of the government's agency, the value of the contract, how many shares he has, the value of those shares. And so clearly, when you then examine the Election Act, I think it is Section 38 of the Parliamentary Registration Act, and I think it's 4 or 4A, it makes it clear that if a candidate does not comply with any of the provisions of the Constitution and the Election Act, the returning officer has a duty under the law to reject him. That didn't happen. I suspected that the returning officer did not know the law, essentially. That is what I believe.
Or the returning officer wore two hats. He was also the director of immigration.
Okay.
Hence, he apparently might have been there to ensure that Mr. Ryan Pinder went through, and his double citizenship wasn't challenged. He being the director of immigration, he would have the authority probably to see him through. Some other parliament registration of returning officer might see it legally and say, look, show me some sign of where you rejected your, you renounced your dual citizenship under Article 9 of the Bahamas Constitution and the proviso thereof.
Yeah.
And if he couldn't do it, he would say, all right, well, you'll have to stop it. So they want to ensure that he did what he needed to do.
And I would like to point out that it is dangerous for Ryan Pinder not to be elected. It's very dangerous to elect him. And what do I mean by that? This is a man who, it is said, has dual citizenship. So on a political dispute with the United States, who would he support?
That's a very interesting question.
Under our Constitution, Her Majesty the Queen and her personal representative, Governor General, His Excellency Arthur Hanna, they are the persons that he ought to be loyal to. But if he has dual citizenship, he's also loyal to President Obama. And if there's a dispute between the Bahamas and the United States, clearly he will identify with the Americans. They have the atomic weapon, they have economic and political clout. In addition to that, historically, when you examine the Pinders, his cousin, Philip Pinder, in 1987, was elected in Oaks Field. He had dual citizenship. when he got tired of Pindling and the PLP, he abandoned Oakesville and returned to the United States. If you don't believe me, ask Sean McQueenie, because Pindling sent Sean to campaign in the constituency, and the people told Sean McQueenie that they were going to vote against the PLP. So Ryan Pinder is the reincarnation of Philip Pinder, and it's very dangerous, and he should be honest. Has he renounced his American citizenship? If he has done so, he should tell us, all right? He's really a fifth columnist.
It might be said also that the Right Honorable Prime Minister might have some loyalties to the United States as well, by virtue of certain other things that were said.
I've heard accusations like that before.
But
what I want to get into next, Mr. Rodney Monka was seen as the star of the debate. I was on Facebook, I was on Twitter, I went to Bahamas Issues, Bahamas Press. All of the websites suggest that Mr. Rodney Monka was the man on top of the debate. Perhaps not the victor, but the most exciting candidate on the stage by far, and certainly increased his margin to get votes in the Elizabeth constituency. Mr. Monka, I want to talk to you about your debating style. It's more than interesting, and I personally would say I haven't seen anything like it since the Right Honorable Hubert Ingram.
Well, I would want to say that I've demonstrated as an ordinary citizen that I can hold my own with these young men. Essentially, I just allow the Lord and the Spirit to guide me. And when I walked in, I said a solemn prayer. And having said that, the forces of evil, I was ready for them.
Do you think that you secured this election?
If the Bahamian people put aside blind political loyalty and affiliation, I am the superior candidate. I'm the oldest candidate. I'm older than Dwayne Sands. I'm the more experienced candidate. When you examine my history on all of the issues, whether or not it's on family life, whether it's not on crime, I'm the person. I'm the only candidate in this race who could manhandle Ingram and Perry Christie. All right? When Pindling fired Mr. Ingram and Mr. Christie, they came into my neighborhood, to me.
Black Village.
Yes, where we provided them political support. In fact, the night that Pindling fired Ingram, me and a number of young men from my neighborhood went to the PLP headquarters, waited for Ingram to come out and said, look, you need friends, we are here. And we went to a restaurant in Coconut Grove. As it relates to Mr. Christie, when he came into Black Village, I said to him, listen, I think you should go back to the PLP. I supported him in doing that. And so the people of Elizabeth know me. They know my record. I'm not just talking about crime. My position, the position of the Workers' Party is no bail for murderers. We're going to hang murderers. And young Ryan Pinder does not know what he's doing because on nomination day, upon receiving the intelligence that he was matching with among a number of thugs and gang leaders, there were 2 men who were on bail for murder in a drive-by shooting, and I left my men and I went down to the PLP headquarters and I mingled because I didn't want misinformation. So on the issues, I'm the best man. I'm the strongest man. I'm the man with the history. And of course, Elizabeth would do well because as the MP, no other work will I take. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Mr. Monka himself. And I have a clip before the break that I want you to watch so that you can see that Mr. Monka brought up an issue that I don't think many people talked about. It's about 6,000 workers that are going to come into this country, and that's about the population of workers at Atlantis, maybe a little bit less. We'll take this break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Of the 4 candidates that competed on Tuesday night, there was clearly one star, but there were also 2 other candidates up there vying for first place. They were the BDM candidate, Mr. Cassius Stewart, and the NDP candidate, Dr. Andre Rollins. I want to welcome Dr. Andre Rollins to the show, but I also want to point out that after reviewing some popular websites, Facebook included, and also particularly Bahamas Issues, it's pointed out that people feel like Dr. Rollins of the NDP won the debate. Dr. Rollins, how do you feel about that?
Well, I am really just extremely pleased that Jones Communications Network saw fit to host the by-election debate. I think it was a great opportunity, really, for the deepening of our democracy, promoting mature political dialogue between those persons who are seeking to be the next representative of the Elizabeth constituency. Fortunately, for us, we are now ushering in a new era of politics, I believe, led by persons like Mr. Wendell Jones, young Bahamians such as yourself, who are trying to bring about a more issues-based political discourse. And I encourage you, I am very pleased, sir, to be a part of history here tonight, being the first show that you are hosting, and I wish you every success. I think that if I can go back to Tuesday night, the greatest regret that I have is that Dr. Dwayne Sands, the FNM's candidate, did not see fit to participate in the debate. I think that it was a grave insult to the constituents who deserved to see Dr. Sands compete in that event, to demonstrate that he was able to articulate his ideas, to know that he could defend the record of the FNM during these past 3 years, and for those persons who are concerned that he is actually going to offer something different than what has been offered by the FNM's parliamentarians thus far, which is a reluctance to really create a voice of their own. He's shown by capitulating to the demands of Mr. Ingram, which I understand was that he not participate. I think that he sent a message that he is not a transformative politician who is willing to take risks that will lead to a deepening of our democracy. We cannot promote any sort of a dictatorship. In times when you're asking people to vote for you, you need to say, look, the constituents have every right to see me in any event where other candidates are fielding questions and explaining to the constituents why they are the best candidate. And for Dr. Sands not to expose himself to that, I think shows a degree of elitism, or it really tells the constituents that they aren't important enough for him to take that risk. And so I'm hopeful that come February the 16th, the message that the voters will send is that going forward, if you wish for us as constituents to vote for you, put yourself forward in the debate, otherwise you will not win. And so I'm hopeful that Dr. Sands' lack of participation will cause him to lose this by-election, because if he were to win, I think then other political parties going forward will say, why participate in a debate if the man who didn't participate went on to win?
Well, let's get to the heart of the issue. Bahamians were able to observe that Mr. Ryan Pinder, according to blogging websites, according to popular opinion, obviously was not the most popular candidate at the debate. You were. Mr. Rodney Monka certainly was very popular. What is that saying? Is that saying, I mean, Dwayne Sands was not there. He didn't even dare to show up. Dwayne Sands was absent. Ryan Pinder wasn't particularly good. The third party is a surgeon. What does that say about the democracy in the Bahamas? And does it say that the third parties are going to win this time? Is this your time? Is this Dr. Andre Rollins' time to walk into the parliament as not an independent member, but a member from a party that has never been in parliament before?
Well, Aaron, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that many persons in Elizabeth would have watched the debate and judged for themselves that I was the best of the 4 candidates who offered themselves. But I don't want to be presumptuous. I believe that, it is arrogant for anyone to believe that by virtue of their performance in a debate that they are now the front runner. That's not the way I think. I mean, to be frank, I believe in looking back at the debate that there are many areas I could have improved upon. And that is how I live. I believe that we must continually seek to improve ourselves. Life should be a continual process of evolution, trying to be the best that you can be. And so I want the public to know, though, that Mr. Ryan Pinder deserves credit, you see, because as a major political party candidate, he could have very easily said, well, since Dr. Sands has not seen fit to participate, I won't then participate. I want everybody out there to know that while I am an opponent in this race, and I wish to end up the victor, I want everybody to know that Mr. Ryan Pinder must be respected for the fact that he took a great risk. And the risk that he took was that he could have very well not come out being the victor. And as the major political party, he stood the most to lose.
But
So,
Dr.
you know,
Rollins, I take issue with that. And the reason why I take issue with that is because Mr. Pinder does us no favor by coming.
No, he does us no favor. You're absolutely right.
So I don't commend anybody
Yeah.
who is a politician
Yes.
and comes to speak to people.
Yeah.
There are different fora by
Yes.
which we engage candidates.
Yes.
We have the right to demand that they come to a debate.
Absolutely.
We have the right to demand that they come to shows like this and answer questions.
Absolutely.
We have the right to demand that they come to our doors.
Yeah.
And we have the right to demand everything but for
Yes.
all of the extra stuff. I
Yeah.
ain't talking about no fridge and stove.
Yeah.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about being able to ask the candidate to come, which is why Dr. Sands surprised me
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
But Ryan Pinder doesn't excite me. I think that he ought to have been at the debate.
Yeah.
He is just as likely to be there as you and
Yeah.
any other
Yeah.
third-party candidate.
You know what? That's an excellent point, Mr. Ferguson. And I'm glad you make that point because I'm not seeking to suggest that he would have been right to exclude himself.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that Dr. Sands, he copped out. People are calling him a chicken now. They're saying that that he's the duck and duck,
Well,
right?
that's democracy.
Right?
That's what they have the right to do.
And all I'm saying is that had Mr. Pinder been a politician who sought to follow fashion, he would have run just like Dr. Sands ran.
Yeah.
Ran away from what he was supposed to be a part of, and that is accountability before the constituents, putting himself there to answer questions that would have caused constituents to decide whether they would support him or another candidate.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I have a clip for you with Mr. Cassius Stewart addressing that particular issue with the FNM and the PLP. We're going to roll that quick, have a look at it, and then I'll come back to Dr.
When I
Rollins
said
and have a
earlier,
talk.
from 1992 to now, we have graduated 85,000 young people with a national average of a D. That's not just the Free National Movement. That's the Progressive Liberal Party as well. And so if you want to point blame at yourself. If you want to move forward, first we got to identify the real problems. And the real problems is the political parties of yesterday have failed our country. It is time for us to move forward.
Thank you very much for running that clip. Now, Dr. Rollins, Cassius Stewart says the political parties of yesteryear have failed the country. The interesting thing that Mr. Stewart stuck to, and I know you're running against him, but he represents the third parties just the same. He kept bringing up the point that Mr. Pinder talked about a vision for the future. Mr. Pinder talked about plans forward. Mr. Pinder talked about what has happened in the past and our failures in the past. And Mr. Stewart harped on the fact that his party, Mr. Pinder's party, the PLP, were part of the problem. How do you feel about that?
Well, quite naturally, I agree with the view that the PLP and the FNM have fallen short as far as the expectation that the major political parties would work on nation building, creating or developing a country that is still on the plateau of being the leader in the region. And I think we are very quickly falling behind. Our educational system is in shambles. Our judicial system is in shambles. Bahamians are having land taken away from them. because there's not a proper land registration system. Crime is at unacceptably high levels. Criminals are empowered because when they are brought before the courts give bail to persons charged with violent crimes. There are a great deal of court cases that are not heard in a timely fashion, or you will have retrials after juries end up in hung juries.
Okay.
And so, people now who are committing crimes believe that because of the failure, in this particular case, of the judicial system, there is no reason why, you shouldn't commit crimes, because there is no, real risk of you being convicted of having committed a crime. And so I believe that when you look at the many cases or systems in our country and the failure of those systems, it speaks to the failure of the persons responsible for governance. And they are both PLP and the FNM.
Let me ask you a question. The theory is being tossed around that only Perry Christie and Hubert Ingram stand to gain from this election. It's suggested that if Mr. Ryan Pinder wins, it legitimizes Mr. Christie's leadership. He continues on to 2012. It's also suggested that if Dr. Dwayne Sands wins, it legitimizes Mr. Ingram's leadership thus far, and his government goes into victory into the next election. How do you feel about that as a third party? Does that not adequately address the fact that our democracy is broadening with your involvement? Give me some feedback on that.
A vote for the PLP or the FNM is a vote for more of the same. It says that you are quite pleased with what is happening in the country today. And it is, in my opinion, licensed for both the PLP and the FNM to take the Bahamian people for granted. Because even if you're a PLP supporter or an FNM supporter, you have to admit that both those political parties have left much to be desired. And so I would agree with the view that an FNM victory will be to Mr. Ingram's advantage and reinforce this idea that he is still, politically speaking, the real answer for the Free National Movement, which I think sends the wrong message to the other members of the party who see themselves as being replacements.
Okay.
I think that the same goes for the PLP, in that if Mr. Ryan Pinder wins, then Mr. Christie's leadership will be reinforced. And so at the end of the day, I believe we must look for a strong showing on the part of the non-mainstream parties, and even beyond that, a victory which will force the kind of changes internally in both the PLP and the FNM that persons within the party to this point have been afraid to make. That's how I see it.
It seems to me, and I just realized this point, but we have a lot of party leaders in this race. You, at one point, were the leader of the NDP?
No, you know.
Or the chairman,
I'm the chairman of the Executive Steering Committee, that's right.
The chairman of the Executive Steering Committee.
Yeah.
Rodney Monka is the leader of the Workers' Party. Cassius Stewart is the leader of the BDM.
Right.
And then, you have the suggestion that Dwayne Sands may not necessarily be in charge of his campaign. And then people were saying, Ryan Pinder, in fact, last night toed the party line and talked about health care from the PLP's perspective.
Right.
So where do the Bahamian people stand to gain in this? How do we assure ourselves that if the third party wins, that your ego or your political stature is not just like that of Mr. Christie and Mr. Ingram? How do we know that the chairman of the steering committee is not coming in to forward the cause of the NDP as opposed to the Bahamian people, which may or may not be the same?
Right. The way you have assurance that that's not the case is because the National Development Party is the party of primaries.
Okay.
The political party leader or the party's candidates committee is not responsible for electing our candidates, is not responsible for electing those persons who are going to be representing the party in future elections. And so because we have election primaries, like they do in the United States, within the National Development Party, the candidates know that their loyalty does not lie to the party leader or to the candidates committee.
Okay.
Their loyalty lies with the constituents themselves. So if they do not perform properly or well, if they do not represent the interests and the concerns of the of their constituents in the House of Assembly, then at the time of a general election or just before, they have to go back to those same constituents and be re-elected to serve as the party's candidate in the next election. And if they would have failed in representing those interests and concerns, and they have every reason to not expect, or they have every reason to expect that they won't be given the vote of confidence of the constituents to be able to go into that next election. And that's the beauty of the NDP. We are not, we don't want political party affiliation, family connections, or wealth to be the primary factor behind who gets chosen as a candidate.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first here on Citizens Review. We actually have a party in the Bahamas that holds primaries. Go figure. I thought politics in the Bahamas was all about big personalities and who got the money, but maybe it's a little different. Perhaps you should consider the NDP. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after these messages. We've come to the segment in our show where we will speak to the big boys in the debate. We're here with the F&M candidates representative, Mr. Michael Turnquest, the vice chairman of the F&M. And we're here with the famous and the most well-known, the foreign policy speaker for the PLP, the MP from Fox Hill, Fred Mitchell. Gentlemen, we're going to show a clip first that shows Dr. Rollins at the debate giving a little interesting talk about the emperor's new clothes.
When the emperor went to see his new clothes, he saw nothing at all. For the tailors were swindlers, and there weren't any clothes. The two major political parties are like the two tailors. They have made many promises about how they would develop this nation and empower our people.
Dr. Rollins described the two major political parties that you gentlemen represent as the swindling tailors of the emperor's new clothes. The clothes which we both know from the story doesn't exist. How do you feel about that, gentlemen?
I find it interesting, when a party is not, when they see something they want, they're willing to say anything to get it back. Unfortunately, Dr. Rollins hasn't had the chance to feel what it is for a political party or his political party to be in power. I think where Dr. Rollins is today is because of the two major political parties. Some of the policies, procedures that, both parties have put in place. What has made this country what it is today. Stemming back from Sir Lynden Pinland to Hubert Ingraham. I think with some of the things that we all say as people in terms of, policies, procedures, the Bahamas has come a long way. We've gained independence. We have, one of the largest ship centers, in the world. You have a lot of things to brag about. So I think, it's a little unfair, but...
Well, I mean, Dr. Rollins has no novel opinion. Mr. Mitchell, I'm sure you would agree that you've heard over the radio waves, you've heard it on TV before. People are saying, I don't quite know who to vote for because I don't think I want to go with the PLP, and I'm not sure I want to go with the F&M. People are looking for a third option. They may not be convinced by the third parties. But why is this sentiment growing? Why is it so strong?
Well, I think it exists anyway. It has existed since party politics existed here. I mean, Andre's a bright man. He started out when he was a student with me. I had PDF at the time. And he made a presentation when we were asked to present about the future of CARICOM to the West Indian Commission when it was here. I was just telling him that I hope I can find the essay because I think it was published in the West Indian Commission report. So since he's been a student in St. John's College, been associated, and it's a natural role for him to take on. And what happens is that from a pure marketing strategy, I mean, why complain about the air when it's all there is to breathe? PLP or F&M, one or the other. And if you want to make a mark, you have to join one of those two parties. He was part of the PLP up until recently. He's shifted now to a third party. I see it really as a marketing strategy to say, one of you fellas got to take a look at me, a serious look at me. If you look at his Facebook profile, you'll see that he's always had leadership positions in whatever body he's been in. So clearly this is a guy who's got a lot of energy, and we got to get him.
But is that a good marketing strategy? At the debate on Tuesday night, the FNM was not present, and we'll get to that in a second. And Ryan Pinder didn't seem like he was particularly stealing the show. So perhaps there's a wave coming about that people are going to say, maybe this time Elizabeth is our chance to show different. And then maybe it's not such a good strategy.
I wouldn't buy that at all.
You wouldn't buy that at all.
I mean, you can go back, look at Eddie and DePuche with the BDL.
Okay.
Paul Adley with the NDP. And then you've got, so they all end up joining, Eddie and DePuche, of course, ends up supporting the UVP, which he should have joined in the first place. And then Paul Adley goes back to the PLP.
Okay.
And then you have the Free PLP, and they join up with the UVP and become the FNM, and then you've got the BDP. So there are all these splits that come, and then, Dr. Nottage tried CDR. I had PDF. At the end of the day, there are two forces. In a situation where you don't have proportional representation. If we switch to proportional representation, I would say these parties have a chance. But in the grander scheme of things, with a first past the post system, you're going to have two parties. It's PLP or FNM, and we want people to join the PLP.
Wow, that's a very interesting way to put it. Mr. Turnquest, I have questions for you. Your candidate was not at the debate. Now, you come here today, and you represent democracy by engaging in this conversation. But apparently, Dwayne Sands doesn't feel the same way. He did not show up at the debate. There were a lot of people who were upset about that. And then there are excuses surrounding it, and let me address them before you start. It was said that he was in the constituency working. Well, the debate was in the constituency. It was held at Epiphany Church, the Anglican Church in Elizabeth. That community invited him in to discuss in a different forum. Not particularly a rally, not particularly in someone's home, but at a debate where you can ask questions, you can answer questions. The PLP was there, the BDM was there, the NDP was there, the Workers' Party was there. Why not the FNM?
Now, like Dr. Sands said, I think the FNM to you, we were house to house, we were door to door. Campaigns are not won in the Bahamas on the TV, on television. Leaders win elections via television in terms of getting the message across. Candidates, there's only so much, in my personal view, that a candidate can carry a party. It's unfortunate that we look at in the Bahamas the FNM, PLP, Perry Christie, and Hubert Ingram. This is what the electorate follow. At the end of the day, for example, when I ran in Kennedy, I never wasted my time with radio shows, talk shows, whatever it may be. The people never knew me, Michael Turnquest. I was the first time coming to politics. I tried to meet everyone, house to house, every little child, whoever it is I could have met on the street, and I got out there and tried to get my message across, try to let the people know who I am. Of course, I have my views on national issues. I have my views on that. I think I will have a chance to express my views on national debates or whatever it may be in terms of how the public, we're talking about the masses, but in terms of people in Kennedy, I had to touch each one of them, shake their hand. The people want to meet the man.
Okay.
And
but are you suggesting that the different fora is unnecessary? Why not engage in the debate? Why not come and answer the questions to the same people from the same Elizabeth, but they want to ask the questions in a different kind of setting?
I watched the debate.
Okay.
And I don't know where the questions came from, who derived the questions.
Okay.
But I did not see personally Elizabeth constituents asking questions. So in terms of that regard, I can't, all I can say is that Dr. Sands was answering the masses in terms of just the Bahamian people, but not the Elizabeth constituents. They have plenty issues, they have plenty concerns that they want to address. I'm sure they had more detailed issues in terms of what they want for themselves in the Elizabeth constituency.
Well, I mean, it's just to me, it seems like there may become a question about elitism. Dr. Sands is staying away from the people and perhaps not engaging in the community. I want to ask Mr. Mitchell, how do you feel about Dr. Sands' decision not to attend the debate?
You know, I mean, each party determines what their position is going to be. And obviously the F&M's position is that they're going to stand or try to stand above the fray. And, you know, I think that's a wrong strategy. My view is that there's been a shift in the electorate that expects that there to be more discussion of issues and seeing people interface as opponents on these issues. I would have actually preferred if the two major parties themselves had the debate one against the next. I think that unfortunately, well, at least one of the individuals, in my view, trivialized the forum by seeking to make jokes after the, you know, on one thing or the next. And so that's the danger you always face in that sort of situation. What I do think is that Ryan was courageous to do it because it's a new forum, and as a major party, it carried very many risks. You know, he could have lost, but he didn't lose. I think he did a credible job, and I think that's the past, and I think he needs to go on now.
You know, but
would you suggest that Pinder came out on top of the debate?
I don't know that anybody came out on top of it. I think that people defended their positions. So it's not a classic debate in the sense that people were interfacing their reactions. But you were asked questions and you gave your position.
You know what? You know what I found interesting about the debate. I mean, I wouldn't call it a debate per se, because it was more of persons piggybacking on the ideas of each other. In terms of, I never saw, other than Mr. Rodney Moncourt, you know, he had a different view from everyone else. But the other candidates really piggyback on one another in terms of, there was never no, in terms of, I disagree with what you say. It was more.
I think Mr. Moncourt did that.
I said Mr. Moncourt did.
Okay.
But then also, and what I also see in terms of a risk, I think, you know, the electorate is moving towards where they want us to now address the public. You know, they want us to address, they want more debates. But at the same time, the Bahamian, our population, the way our politics are in the Bahamas, and I've been a part of the election process, it gets very out of hand. It can get out of hand. And I find that to be, it's challenging. It could.
When you say out of hand, what do you mean?
I'm just mean in terms of the back and forth, not being the candidates per se, but in terms of the sometimes some things, you know, because we get riled up in the moment. In terms of my candidate might say one thing, your candidate might say the next. You know, but here, you know, we can talk and we can speak and, you know, learn how to control our anger, we control our temper, but, you know, our electorate, you know, they take politics serious. You know, with some things in the Bahamas, some people try to avoid is politics and religion. Because it's a very touchy.
But you know, there's got to be vigorous debate. And
it has. I agree.
I'm you know, of course, that I'm on the left side, I suppose, of my own party on these issues, because I believe that we have a good adversarial system. The system's meant to be adversarial. I mean, if we can all sit down and have a mutual agreement society, what's the good of that?
Yeah, that doesn't work.
The idea is to have the cut and thrust of on politics, and then develop good policy as a result of the cut and thrust of the politics.
You know, that
so I wouldn't begrudge the public that.
Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that, you know, I think it's a process, it's a gradual process for us. And for the two major political parties, and then to include the third, fourth, the parties that come along the way who are looking to agitate the process.
I agree with the gradual process. I just think that the gradual process begins with having these debates, having everybody present at the debate, and getting it going. I want to show a clip right now from the debate that will address the PLP. Mr. Ryan Pinder talked about health care. Let's show that clip, and we'll get right back.
Bahamians are entitled to health care under the stewardship and leadership of the Prime Minister, Mr. Perry, Gladstone, Christie. The appropriate program to guarantee health care to Bahamians was put in place and subsequently removed by the current F&M administration and objected to by my candidate, my opposition, Dr. Dwayne Sands.
Well, you heard it from Mr. Ryan Pinder himself. The only difficulty I have with that is that there's a perception that the PLP is a little out of touch with people feel to be reality. And Mr. Pinder ran the party line in saying that Mr. Christie provided for health care. When as much as I don't like to credit the F&M, as much as they deserve credit sometimes, the F&M has actually brought into effect the prescription drug plan, and that plan has really been the only step towards health care. It's not enough. It's only a baby step, but that has actually been done. Mr. Mitchell, I want to talk to you about Ryan Pinder running the party line on this issue. I have a challenge with 21st century candidates who say that they are different. The only thing they are is young, and they're talking the same talk of the old guard.
Well, I'm not sure what a 21st century candidate means. I mean, politics is
Well,
essentially politics.
He described himself as a
21st century candidate. I would give you my input on that.
But as a
just a second.
as a 21st century politician, right? It means trying to tap into the themes of the generation. And of course, as I said in my own campaign, if you're a young woman and you get breast cancer today in this country, I mean, I don't know how you pay for health care. The PLP had a proposal and had legislation which would have dealt with that issue.
But the PLP had that proposal from 2002, and it wasn't executed in the 5 years they had government.
Well, I understand all of that. The point is, the law was passed. It was supported by the F&M. They didn't. They then opposed it now that they're in government. But the fact is, there is the blueprint there, and it can be carried out. And that's the only thing that's actually going to deal with the actual health care problems and costs which people face at the moment.
Mr. Turnquist, I know you have something to say.
In terms of the national health care plan, I think in terms of us when we were in opposition, we were very limited in terms of our numbers. I don't know what takes place in the higher beings, but like I said, I think the PLP has had a lot of time to do plenty of things in their 5 years. It wasn't, a lot of things were not carried out. I think to our credit, we have been in 2-3 years, and of course we're taking baby steps. I think everything the same way we're now trying to move our electoral process to debates. We're taking small steps. I think in which some of the ways in which the PLP try to do things is like we can take it all at one time.
No. I mean, what I rather say on the PLP is that anybody today has to ask themselves whether they were better off 2.5 years ago than they are now.
But does that have to do with the world economy or the economy?
I mean, I hear what you say, but whoever's in charge has got to take responsibility for what exists today.
But I think at the F&M's credit, we are taking the responsibility. We are putting the weight on the people's weight on our shoulder, and we are trying to support or give as much benefits to those who are the unemployed.
Now, see, I don't know about that because I think Rodney Monco was right, and when he said that we have to go to the minister for a pill because the prescription drug plan is not comprehensive enough to deal with the healthcare challenges. But the thing that I'm bringing up here is that in addition to the fact that the F&M never dealt with the whole issue, the PLP never dealt with the issue, period. They passed the legislation. It never took effect. And as far as I'm concerned, and it seems like the Bahamian people feel the same way, if no one receives health care from a bill, then it's not successful.
Well, no. Of course, I understand that could be an argument. But the point is, it was passed. The point is that there was wide discussion, consultation on the issue, and the only question that was left was the rules to be brought into force, which we said at the time the legislation was passed it would take about 12 months to do. Unfortunately, the country chose otherwise. And today we still have the problem where people cannot pay for health care, and that's the issue. And this prescription drug plan that they've got does not cut it, I'm afraid. Doesn't answer the issue.
But I think it's taking small steps towards the bigger issue.
And then they have a candidate who doesn't remember that he opposed it when he was when they were in opposition.
That's Dr. Dwayne Sanders.
Yes, right. I mean, that's just the most incredible thing. I didn't oppose it, he says. I support it. Suddenly, it's just unbelievable.
I can't speak on Dr. Sands' behalf. I can go based upon what Dr. Sands, told me at one point in terms of, it seems as though when he spoke against the National Health Plan, he was somewhat, shot down for it. When he was speaking as an independent or a consultant on the topic, he felt as though persons made him out automatically just to be, you're an F&M, that's why you're doing X, Y, and Z.
No. But what turns out in the end is he now becomes a candidate for office in which he's saying that was the wrong plan. So people say, is this a mere coincidence? Or they look back now on his interventions before when he was in opposition and they say, that's the reason why he was opposing it. Not because it wasn't a good plan, but because all along he was a political operative. That's the issue.
I think I beg to differ. I think
no, I'm
Dr.
sure
Sands,
you will, but I think
Dr. Sands at a point 3 years ago, I don't think Dr. Sands was thinking about, I'm going to enter politics, so I'm going to start. I think Dr. Sands, with the type of person he is, the character, his reputation precedes himself. I think if he had vied for candidacy in 2007, he would have been granted for any constituency he might have run for.
No, but I'm not making a personal comment.
We have to wrap up this segment. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this break. Paging Dr. Sands. Paging Dr. Sands. We at Citizens Review are searching the wards of the hospitals for Dr. Dwayne Sands. We've gotten a call that says the Elizabeth constituency is under cardiac arrest since the departure of Malcolm Adderley. Dr. Sands, does this politics have you too busy already to help the good people of the Bahamas? They invited you to a debate. You declined the offer of the debate. Dr. Sands, what kind of politics is this that you're playing in the 21st century? If you're watching this tonight, Dr. Sands, you, sir, are under citizens' arrest. You have the right to remain silent. That is apparently a right with which you are already familiar. And the next time you want to play ghost at a debate, remember, we at Citizens Review are the Ghostbusters for politicians like you. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the clip of the star himself, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the inaugural show of Citizens Review. All of our guests from the Bahamas, all around the islands of the Bahamas, and also our guests tuning in online at citizensreviewtv.com. Have a nice evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have had an opportunity to listen to 4 citizens. The ghost is disqualified. And if you, as citizens, are honest and not blind by mere political affiliation, you gotta admit that the taxi driver is the better candidate. They have no ideas, and Elizabeth need a full-time MP. When Pinling fired Perry Christie and Hubert Ingram, they came to Black Village, where I and my neighborhood provided them protection. That is a fact. He's there. Vote for a candidate who has a history of struggle. I can get things done. It's about lobbying. You think Ingram can listen to any of these young men? They don't know anything about political warfare. They mean well. Down the road, your choice, be reasonable. It's the taxi driver, Rodney Monker. Please give me 2 years. 2.5 years. That's all I ask. Young PLPs, young liberals, rise up. Rise up. Rise up, young liberals.
Thank you very much.
And vote for the best candidate. That's me.